Welcome to another episode of Gloved. I'm here, I'm with Jamie. We've got a real special guest today, someone that I've worked closely with through the years, someone who I admire so much as a goalkeeper and so much as a person, and we're going to get into those reasons as we move on. Been through a lot of adversity in his career, lots of injuries, moves, mental decisions, how he wanted to play the game, what he wanted to do with the game, and he's still here, in my opinion, and many other people's opinion, one of the top goalkeepers to play in the Premier League and playing in the Premier League. We've got Ben Foster. So I'd like to welcome him to the show.
Cheers, mate. That was lovely, that. I feel a million after that. Thank you. Awesome.
Nothing but truth. And Ben, you've not met Jamie before, so I'll let you two guys get acquainted. Jamie, Ben.
Yeah, Ben, really good to have you on this episode. I've been looking forward to it. I know you're a Leamington lad originally. Is that right?
Yes, mate. Leamington, Royal Leamington Spa, mate. Lovely.
Yeah. Well, we've got a house in Leamington as well. So
just another one of those. Yeah, nice, mate. Nice. Whereabouts in Leamington? We'll have to meet up for a pint when this is all over. Do you know what I mean?
Do you know the Fat Pug?
Yeah, I do, mate. I do. Yeah. Guys Cliff kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, down that way, Old Milverton, that way.
Nice, so, mate, nice.
Yeah, so
big houses down there, mate.
Fat Pug. Yeah. So no, really good to meet you. I know Joe talks highly of you, and we had Fraser on not so long ago.
Somehow we had Fraser on, the mute hermit.
Oh God, you've done wonders getting him on, haven't you? Because you just can't get hold of him. You can't contact him unless it's a text message. He ain't giving you nothing.
Yeah. And I thought that was me. I thought it was just me. Joe used to say, "Jamie, don't take it personally." I'm like, I don't take it personally, but this guy just does not get back to anybody. So yeah. I'm glad you're confirming that. That's
it's true.
And Fraser, if you're watching this, even Ben's calling you out as well. So,
oh good. Yeah, sort it out, Fraser. Come on, mate, get with it.
So no, we that conversation was really good, and they were talking about you and how you guys were at England, and you seem to have had this really interesting journey that I think both Joe and I are interested in. When we first talked about this, it was about what about comparing? You don't really get to compare journeys in this kind of way unless you're sat in the same room. And I think we wanted to give not just the youngsters the opportunity to hear how Ben Foster's journey is, but also your own colleagues. Joe said many a times, God, I didn't even think about that of Fraser or of Wrighty, until you've had that conversation. So that's the exciting bit about this is, what you don't know about you.
Yeah, they're the little bit. I love that little bit because, like you say, you might not talk about or think about those little bits, but then you hear it and you think, actually, yeah, I didn't even think. It's a different point of view, a different way of looking at things. Like, I think that's one thing as I've got older, just sort of everybody's got their own point of view, their own sort of way that they want to approach things. And I think that's the beauty of life in general is you can't just be so judgmental. You've got to appreciate everybody's point of view and listen to it at least and try and understand where they're coming from.
Yeah, and I think this gives us a great opportunity to do that. And, we've really, we just love the fact that, one, it's getting you polishing some of those memories that you've had when you've played in great moments and not so great moments, but also, being able to leave something for, the 10-year-old or the 15-year-old who's in the academy, or even the guy who's in the under-23s who actually wants your jersey one day, but you've already walked the miles, and it's what can you leave for him.
Yeah, perfect. Well, it's fun. Joe's had I wouldn't say similar sort of journey to me, but we've been along the same sort of routes a few times. You know what I mean? I remember, Joe, do you remember like when when I was on loan at Kidderminster and I played against Shrewsbury and you were on the bench. I just remember this big sort of blonde-haired lad, like massive bouffant hair. Do you remember? Like,
mate, I said to Jamie, I just remember playing against Kiddie, warming up, and your goal kicks landed in our area, and I was like, what is going on here? I didn't even know it was physically possible to kick the length of the field. And
Well, how old were
turn
you
around.
then? You were...
I was young. Was that conference?
I don't even think it was. Yeah, it probably was. No, it was League Two. Yeah, maybe Conference. Yeah,
No,
maybe
I'm
Conference.
sure it's conference. I was 16, 17.
Wow. Yeah, you were. Because I remember everybody buzzing off you because you were on the bench. And even then, like back then, they were going, oh, you see that young kid on the bench and they got big hopes for him. They got really high hopes for him and stuff like that. And you couldn't miss you because, like I say, your hair was so big and blonde. It was mad.
I remember the game. I remember the game. You were on fire, and then like I literally had my eye on you from there because I didn't know you didn't really get that much info back then, did you? Like
no,
just
nothing. No.
A guy called Ben Foster was in goal. Didn't even know you were on loan or anything like that. And I was like, woof. Remember, it's a good game, and your kick just stood out to me. Your left foot, like literally landing bombs in the area. It was,
as far away from my goal as possible, mate. That's
the best place, mate. That's the best place it needs to be.
But we'll actually get on to that's also an interesting topic, that because it comes up a lot, and we talk about, you know, what's your emphasis on playing with your feet. You know, the shifting tactics today from a goalkeeper who's bombing it to now you've got to play out from the back. You know, why don't we just jump into there straight away, Joe? And you know, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah,
well, I think everyone's different. I was going to say, like we spoke with Fraser, like that's why I love getting. I don't want this just to be a goalkeepers podcast or show, because I think it's important to see that we're all similar and, you know, and different. Footballers, non-footballers, goalies, non-goalies, but like I think everyone's just so different as a keeper, and people have asked me for advice recently to be a goalkeeper, and you don't know what to say. You've got one window to say something to a 10-year-old, and my first bit of advice is just find out who you are as that keeper, find out what sort of keeper you are, and be the best of that goalkeeper you can be. Yeah.
Just being efficient, mate. I think that's that's the word, isn't it? It's just learn how to be efficient for what you can do as a goalkeeper. Because you might not be as springy as your mate, or you might not be, you know what I mean, the most agile, athletic, all that kind of stuff. But there is still many different ways of stopping the ball going in the back of the net. So you need to emphasise your abilities of what you can do and make them as good as possible. That's the beauty of goalkeeping. I think there's so many ways to do it. And especially now in the Premier League, just looking at some of the goalies in the Premier League, some might not be, like you say, have the best attributes in the world, but my God, are they so efficient. I think you look at people like Alisson, for me, he is the best goalie because he is so efficient. His efficiency in every aspect of what he does is just ridiculous, and that stands out for me more than anything.
I totally agree, mate. When I look at him, I don't look at him and think what he's doing is impossible. I'm blown away by how it is every single time. It's the right decision, it's the right move, and even when it isn't, it doesn't matter to him. And then you look at someone like Edison, who's a completely different keeper, but you've got to respect him because he's so good at what he can do.
Exactly.
Good.
Yeah, exactly. You could go through the list. You could go through the list, and everyone's got completely different attributes. But I totally agree with what you say about Alisson. Just like I say, even if it's the wrong decision and he might end up in a goal, which is once in a blue moon, he does not care. You can just see on his face, he will still do the same thing next time. He will still do, you know what I mean? It's what comes naturally to him. And I think sometimes it's so hard to actually be taught how to just make the right decision. I think that's down to the person. Do you know what I mean? You learn it as you get older, don't get me wrong, but it's very hard to get it to that 99% level where I feel he's at.
Totally agree. I'm going to say, so with that, you've worked with some keepers, mate, in your time, like some big keepers. You've worked down the leagues. What coming up, what did you take from goalkeepers? Because if, like, my outside opinion from not knowing you very much as young is I just saw you as someone who turned up and went in goal, mate. So I don't know whether you were just naturally good, could naturally kick it and play, but did you try and really, really hone your skills from a young age? Because obviously chefing, you know, you had a different upbringing in the goalkeeping and footballing world to a lot of top keepers to the level you're at now. So I was wondering, how did you get the best out of yourself, or did you get the best out of yourself from just being Ben Foster who rocked up and winning goal?
Yeah, I don't think I've ever said to myself, right, try and hone your skills to be like the best you could be. Like, get in the gym and do this, but I don't think I've ever really properly done that. Do you know what I mean? Like I say, I think I'm very good at not thinking about it too much, especially now anyway, I'd say the last sort of 5-6 years especially, of just not even really thinking about it too much. I played the game.
Really see that now you play, like really see it.
I feel like I've played the game so long and so much now that I could quite happily, and if they let me do it, I would definitely do it. If I didn't have to train at all in the week, I swear on my life I would happily not train and play it on a Saturday. That would be like my dream job, seriously. And my dream job would just be play on a Saturday, because I know on a Saturday, like everybody's the same. Once the game kicks off, your adrenaline goes and you get that mad buzz for it kind of thing. And I know I can do stuff on a Saturday that I can't do in training on a Tuesday, Wednesday. You know what I mean? It's just not the same. I don't get that same buzz. So I think I have always had a massive part of me has just been a sort of happy-go-lucky kind of just turn up and deal with it kind of thing, which I think has probably held me in good stead as I've got older.
How would that have helped you if you'd have had that earlier in your career?
That would have been, it would have been the biggest thing to have happened for me when I was younger. Like, so take the start out of it. When I was at Man United, for example, I didn't get that football was that intense when I was younger. Like growing up and stuff, it was always like, oh, imagine making your debut, it'll be a nervous time, blah, blah, blah. But it wasn't until I actually signed for Man United that it kind of really became real. Do you know what I mean? And there was like, if you made a mistake for Man United, oh my gosh, like you would know that 1 billion people would have seen that mistake later on that day. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that sort of, that almost started to get into my head a little bit. And really, like I struggled with that, the confidence, all the bit that comes with it for a good few years while I was at Man United, because it was like, it was too much. It was just way too much. I didn't have the skills. I wasn't equipped with the skills to be able to deal with that mentally. Do you know what I mean?
So when you signed for United, you know, that's like, obviously, it is a dream move for anyone to sign for a club like that. And imagine you probably thinking, this is great. You know, I'm looking forward to it. Champions League, Premier Leagues. Did you walk in the building and just feel something different? Because like, you know, we'll go on to discuss later, but like you feel a business end of a football club. You feel the difference between a Man United, Man City, and with the greatest respect to them, you feel the difference to a West Brom or, you know, the clubs that you've been at and the Stoke. It's a different intensity. It's a different mindset. It's a different, you have fun when you're allowed to have fun. And other than that, it's showtime. You know, you're really, really, really important. There's constantly people bitching. There's people stabbing you in the back. There's people wanting your spot. There's people smiling to your face. Like, that's a totally different environment. Did you feel that straight away, or were you still kind of from Leamington, lamping at the length of the field and making great saves? How long did it take before you really thought, shit, this is different?
Yeah, well, that's exactly it. Like that was the problem. I've always been this kind of kid from Leamington, just like happy-go-lucky. But the second you walk through the door at Man United, like you say, it's business, mate. Honestly, and like you say, you're allowed to have a day of fun, and that might be one day a week where you're playing games and it's a laugh and whatever. The rest is serious business. And I couldn't get my head around the fact that everybody was on it 24/7. Do you know what I mean? Not even just within the football arena, away from the football arena. They were living this kind of crazy sort of polished life that it's like they all knew what they were doing, like robots. Do you know what I mean? On the pitch, off the pitch. It's like they knew what they were doing. And I didn't know what to do on the pitch because my mind was getting boggled. And then off the pitch, I was struggling again even more. Do you know what I mean? So I didn't know how to deal with stuff. Like I say, it's something where when you get older, I've learned so much to be comfortable in my own skin, just be happy with who I am as a person. And then I think that helps you so much more as a footballer as well. Because like I say, I think I'm a nice bloke, I'm all right, I'm happy, I'm blah, blah, blah. So I think if anybody's got a problem with me being that way, then that's not my problem. That's their problem. And I'm not going to judge them for it because they might be going through their own stuff. Do you know what I mean? But I think that's important to understand where they're coming from. But just be happy in yourself. Thanks, darling. Just had a coffee. But yeah, just be happy with yourself. Like, and then that can go onto the pitch as well. Like you say, you got to know what you can and can't do as a goalkeeper. So I'm not like we said earlier about the distribution thing. I ain't trying to pass out from the back so much. Like, it's great and it looks wicked. And these young goalies coming through, I feel from because it's almost like they feel obliged to do it now. It's like the rounded goalkeeper has to be able to do that. But I've always said, like, I had Tony Pulis, thankfully, he does not want you to pass out from, get it miles away. But I have had managers that are like, right, try and pass it to here, pass it to there. And I've had to say, no, listen, I can't really do that for you. I'm decent at what I can do, but I can't do that for you. So it is what it is. I think that's the important thing as well. Just be honest with yourself, be honest with your manager, that kind of stuff. And yeah, that's my advice anyway. Yeah.
I like that, because Joe, he's definitely talking our language there. You know, being honest with yourself, knowing yourself.
Yeah.
You're right. It does take some years to do that. If you've not, you mentioned it. You said I didn't have the skill to be able to do that. I think what was also important, what you said, Ben, was being happy with yourself. And for, you know, if we're talking about a young lad, there's even lads at your age who are not happy with themselves because they've not had that perspective on it. What did you need at that time at United? You said confidence. You said thinking about 1 billion people watching it. That's nothing to do with your goalkeeping ability. That's not even football.
Yeah. Well, I think for most of the problem for me was while I was at Man United, I just started the family with my wife. So we had just started having kids.
How many?
So I've got 2, but they're very close. They're very close in age. There's only 11 months in between the 2. Right. So at that time, it was a very I went through a 2, 3, 4 year period where it was a very stressful period. Like, you know, I was away from home a lot and I missed the kids and all that kind of stuff. But that, without doubt, crept into my football. That affected my football so much. So when we were talking about it earlier with Joe about the England setup, and I remember we went to the World Cup, which was amazing. I had some wicked times. We seriously did. But there was one point when the kids were sort of 1 and 2 years old, where I remember saying to Joe, we'd played golf or something. We were having some food, and I said, mate, I think I'm going to retire. I think I'm going to retire from England football. And he was like, fuck. Yeah, and I remember eating chips and saying it. I was like, mate, I just don't enjoy it when I'm here. Do you know what I mean? All I think is I want to be home with a family and I miss them, kind of thing. And that's all I just kept thinking. So, and inevitably, a few weeks later, I got home from with the England squad and I'd retired. But I think that was a certain of the circumstances around me at the time. Do you know what I mean? And I don't think it could have been helped. It would have been great if I could have had somebody to sort of put an arm around me and sort of tell me this and tell me that. Somebody had been there, but I didn't have anyone like that. And I think them sort of people, they are worth their weight in gold. And I'm sure, Joe, you will do it at Burnley. I do it at Watford. I've done it at West Brom. When you see a younger player, it might not be not even necessarily a goalie, just a younger player, you've got to try and help them and guide them as much as you can. You can't always just be that horrible sort of nail them type of guy. You've got to put an arm around them and talk to them on a human level as well, because people respond to that better.
I was going to say, Jay, like Fozzie potentially knowing what he knows now when he's 24, 25, me knowing like it's nearly impossible without having any life experience or any kind of ups or downs. It's nearly impossible to have that. So the idea of this podcast is to give people the idea, but we certainly can't give the answers. I think we're just going to give people the signs that you could potentially, you might need to just open up your mind, listen to maybe to a few opinions that you don't want to hear, listen to, you know, be able to ask yourself the real important questions. So I'm saying to you, Fozzie, right now, when did you sign for United?
Blimmin' heck, mate. 20, I think I was 24.
Right, so 24, what an age. The England goalkeeping spot was wide. No one was England's number one then, not really. You know, it transitioned from Paul Robinson to Green.
Yeah, it was just coming out of Robinson. Yeah.
You're at Manchester United. What did you go into that? Because we're going to talk about how different mentalities. Did you go into Man United thinking I'm going to be Man United's number one? I'm going to win the Champions League. I'm going to win the Premier League. I'm going to be England's number one. That is what I want. And if whatever your answer is then what would you think you'd be thinking right now if you knew what you knew?
Yeah, okay. So I obviously went out on loan straight away when I signed for United. I was 22, I think, when I signed for Man United. So I was out on loan for 2 years and then we started having kids. But I remember going back to United, I had a knee injury, so I was out for a year. So that took me to 25. And then at 25, the pre-season was coming round, blah, blah, blah. You know, Edwin went and broke his hand. We had a pre-season friendly game in, I think it was away at Bayern Munich or something like that. He broke his hand in a game, in a penalty shootout of it, all things. So he was out. This is like 2 weeks before the season starts. He was out for 3 months, yeah. So I was number 2 at the time, and it was like, boom, all eyes on you, Ben. This is your time now. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And at first, I was like, yeah, all right, I'll have a bit of this. This is class, like, do you know what I mean? So I went into it, happy-go-lucky Ben Foster, boom, boom, boom. Went out, played, did really well for the first, I don't know, half a dozen games or something. And then I had one game against Man City. You remember the one where it was 4-3, Shay Given was in goal. 4-3. And I got absolute pelters after the game from everybody involved in football. The manager, not least the manager, yeah, absolute pelters. So anyway, I was on thin ice. I was on seriously thin ice from that moment on. And then it was another couple of weeks later, I had another bad game. Boom, out the team. You're out the team. But the thing that happened was they said you're out the team, but then I didn't know how to deal with that. Do you know what I mean? I'm so happy-go-lucky that I'm just going with the flow. I haven't had too many setbacks in my life, kind of thing. Too many setbacks that really sort of rock you and go, shit, that's like, what do I do, kind of thing. And I didn't have anybody in place to put an arm around me or explain it, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And it proper affected me. I mean, like, seriously affected me for a good couple of years.
How did it affect you, Ben?
I'd say forget football for a second, just as a man, do you know what I mean? Just as a bloke, I'm still going through all these mad emotions of trying to learn the ropes of being this footballer at this massive football team, and that I didn't have a clue what people expected from me. I wasn't sure how to just, even social situations, you know what I mean? Just talking to people. I had this kind of like, it's almost like I had an inferiority complex, which is crazy, but I just felt so like inferior. I didn't know how to speak to people, how to conversate. I'd get really nervous. Anxiety was crazy high. And it wasn't until like I actually left United. It was. I remember Sir Alex Ferguson calling me into his office and say, "Listen, we've agreed to say to Birmingham." And mate, honestly, it was like, oh my God, thank God for that. I'm out of the fire pit. Do you know what I mean? I'm out of the scrutiny. And like I've always worked with psychologists anyway. So I've had this psychologist that I worked with. And we had a good chat about stuff, got this and that. And I remember even when I went to sign for Birmingham, I was going to do my medical with their doctor, the Birmingham doctor at the time. And I must have been a complete different personality to what I am now. And I remember us coming back on the train from some medical centre somewhere, and he went, "Are you all right?" And I went, "What do you mean?" He went, "You just seem a bit sort of like low and down." And I swear on my life, I've always tried to project this like positivity and blah, 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 blah. And I remember at the time, I didn't know I was being low or down. And he said, you seem like really low or down kind of thing. And I was like, no, I'm fine. And looking back on it, I must have been miserable, mate. And I feel for my wife and people like that. Do you know what I mean? Because you have to go home and you unload all that crap on your wife as well. So she has to live through the same experiences that you're living through, knowing that it's miserable for you. So then you put it on her as well. It's not a good place to be, mate. It really isn't a good place to be. But it's always, like Joe says there, we can't always give you the answers, but we can always try and guide you in the right way. So people say, like, learn from your mistakes, but it's not even that. You can learn from your experiences. And for me, sorry, I was just going to say, I think it's literally the best thing about life, is learning from your experiences. So the United thing, still, I would never, ever change it for what it was, because I've learned so much from some of the people I met, Edwin van der Sar, working with him. Just brilliant times to learn things.
Ben, I just love everything you've just said there. Joe knows how passionate that I am for getting people to, it's not just learning from experience. I call it anticipating, don't react. We know that on this mountain called life, called, professional sports, on the mountain, people have gone up that mountain already. I always say, and some of the young goalkeepers that I work with who are coming behind you guys, I say to them, stop running up the mountain in your trackie, because it's going to be cold up at the top. There's going to be a ravine somewhere, but we just don't know where that ravine's going to be. But Ben's been through it. Joe's been through it. All of the guys have been through it. And you just think you can sprint up this mountain
Yeah.
But actually, you need to go with a big North Face jacket and the ropes and the ladders.
Yeah, yeah.
You don't set off with no equipment. You know, these guys are showing you that they fell down a ravine. My thing with football, then, and you know, Joe and I have had this conversation loads of times, is how come people are not giving you these tools beforehand? Because it's already happened.
It's crazy, isn't it? It's crazy.
It's like expecting somebody to go up Everest,
yeah,
with no equipment.
Yeah, the best way I can put that into words, what you just said there is, so at a football club, you've got coaches for every single aspect of physical ability in a football club. You'll have gym coaches, first team coaches, reserve coaches, goalie coaches, the first team coach. There's nobody to coach your head. There's nobody to coach your mentality, to coach how you approach things, how you deal with things. There's nobody there for that, which is, for me, is just criminal, because it's got to be half the battle, at least, without doubt. You can work, they put all the money towards improving your physical, making sure you're in peak condition, but then they totally neglect the mental and physiological side of your what this does for you, because this controls everything, and they don't tell you how to do that.
It's you know, neck up. All the training is neck down.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's this part here, and yes, you know, clubs do have them. I was on a call yesterday with a group of coaches, and there was a psychologist from a club on the call, and she said, "How do I get this across? Because the clubs are still going like, you know, we don't need it." And you're saying that's what I would have needed when I was at Manchester United. You needed it before you were at Manchester United. Manchester United was the mountain.
Yeah.
Top of the mountain. You needed it at the base.
Yeah, without doubt. Without doubt. I think football teams are very scared to get psychologists into football clubs, because it's like, there's a good analogy I heard was like, it's like psychologists are like when they deal with players are like onions, yeah? So there's loads of layers, yeah? And you have to peel back the layers to get into all the good stuff in the middle. But then you have to also be able to put that onion back together, because it's got to go and perform on Saturday. So I think they're afraid of unraveling proper frailties within people, but only frailties because people don't know how to deal with stuff.
It's only frailties if you look at it as frailties. It's people think that talking honestly and openly is a vulnerability, and it's got to be shifted. It's vulnerability that is strength.
Yeah,
you know, that you strike me as, Joe does anyway, because I know him well, is that vulnerability of being open actually becomes your weapon.
Yeah, massive strength. Yeah,
it becomes a massive strength. What we experience are coaches who have been through similar experiences as you, but have never dealt with them, and they didn't have a way of dealing with them. So what they're doing is they're passing that on, and they don't want to go there. So, you know, I just love that, you know, that perspective. What do you think, Joe?
I'm going to say I've got an opinion on what you're saying there, Fozzie, and I'd be interested to hear what you think. So if Man City or the team I'm at now, Burnley, they've got a club sports psychologist. I think if you really want to take this stuff seriously, you know, not everyone can afford to have their own personal sports psychologist. I get that. They're expensive, Jay. But if you really want to armor up, if you really want to zip up a North coat, and you really want someone in your corner, or a personality, or, you know, I don't know, a way of thinking in your head, your own head, not the team's head. I don't think you can have that with a club psychologist. A club psychologist can get the feel of as a group, but Ben Foster at Man United, Terry Johnson, the club's sports psychologist, he's important to Sir Alex Ferguson, he's important to Thomas Kuszczak, he's important to Edward van der Sar, he's important to Rio Ferdinand. He can't help you when you're like you know what, I need a rethink here. I'm feeling vulnerable. I need help. I think if you're a young player, you need to be looking at not necessarily podcasts like this. You need to be reading books. You need to be watching. You know, I'm watching the Michael Jordan documentary at the moment, and I can't believe there's a reason why he's one of the greatest icons in sporting history. I didn't know anything about him. I just knew his Air Jordan, and I'm like, wow, what a man. But how he resonates with me, I don't think he'd resonate with you, Fozzie, because his attitude's too much, and we're going to get onto like how we differ. His attitude's way too much for you to be happy, great goalkeeper and great father Ben Foster. But for me, that attitude would put me in the right stead. But what I'm whittering on about and trying to say is psychology and how you're going to get your North Face on to go up the mountain. Someone ain't going to give you that. You've got to go and look for it. You've got to, if you really want to invest in your career, you've got to invest in yourself. And to do that, you need to work out who the hell you are, and you need good people around you. Like I was dying to ask the question when you were saying there, when you weren't the Ben Foster that we know now, like huge shoulders. Literally, you shake hands with Fozzie on the pitch, he nearly knocks you over because he's just over. Like he could have just lost 5-0. He's just had a great time, buzzing to see his mate down the other end, and that is what everyone loves about you. So I'd love you to have been doing that at Man United in Champions League final, like knocking Victor Valdez over after you've just had a world. Like how did the guy that was at the Birmingham Medical, how did that work out with your family? Like looking back now, because it's difficult to approach you at the time. How does your wife talk about those situations? How does your inner circle talk about you in that situation?
Yeah, almost like a different person, to be honest with you. It's not Ben Foster. Like you say, I used to come home and unload. And bearing in mind, my wife's been at home with 2 kids under 2. She's had a stressful day anyway, yeah. She's miserable. Yeah. She hasn't got out of the house. She's tired, all that kind of stuff. I remember you used to come home from training and I'll be like, crap, shit, this is kicked off. And she's like, well, I've been at home. And I'm like, oh, you've been at home with the kids? Oh, nightmare. You know what I mean? Like, horrible. Like, that's so horrible, because like that, all you're doing is basically you're just caring about yourself. Like you literally, nobody else's emotions or feelings come into it. You are so zoned in for yourself, yeah, because you're
zoned in for yourself, but you're not doing anything about it.
Exactly. You're just literally like digging a deeper hole for yourself every time, just a little bit more, keep it going. And no joke, me and my wife nearly split up so many times, because it was it just weren't working. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't working. I was away from home, and then when I was back at home, I was miserable. I was arguing. I was blah. So it wasn't until, like I say, life experience, it's brilliant. The hindsight is incredible, but leaving Man United to go to Birmingham, they're not in the Champions League. They're not in the later stages of the FA Cup or the League Cup. It's Saturday games. And I've got to admit, that Saturday, it is just a thing of.
And you're living at home, mate, at Birmingham. You're living at home.
Exactly. So a lot of things improve. You know what I mean? A huge amount of things can improve because you're not in that goldfish bowl. I'd say the stem of it was I just used to feel the stress so much from football. That's what it was. The stress of football used to take over my whole life. And I think if that's the case, whoever you are, whether you're a 10-year-old goalie, whether you're a 40-year-old goalie, if stress is taking over your life, then you need to go and sort it out. You need to go and talk to somebody about it. You need to, like you say, read books. I've read books about psychology and why your brain does what it does. And there is literally, it's like there's like an instruction manual. You can help yourself. It's like you can literally help yourself. Like sorry, I'm muddling and stuff, but
no, listen, this is all great stuff.
I find the younger you are, the more emotionally immature you are, okay, which is probably stands to reason. But I find it very hard to be able to, like my son, for example, he's 10 years old, we're out in the garden. If he misses a shot, he's flinging his arms, he's doing that. And I'm like, mate, you've missed the shot. Don't worry. But he'll still do it. But I'll keep chipping away. It's because and I see it in some of the lads at football, some of the strikers, I find strikers have a low emotional like ability. Do you know what I mean? They're really
tolerant.
Their tolerance is like that kind of thing. The slightest things happen and they fly off the handle. And
we call it boy mode. Ben.
Pardon, sorry?
We call it boy mode.
Yeah, okay.
Boy mode. So you can be 50 in boy mode.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, exactly that. So they fly.
You
off
will be 50 in boy mode.
Yeah. So they fly off into boy mode. And I'm going, right, like, that ain't going to help you, you know. You're making it worse for yourself by going into boy mode. So miss the target, just go, oh, what are you doing? Carry on, yeah? Next time, boom. But doing that is just going to make it worse. So why would you want to make it worse? Because you're the only one who decides if you can make it better or worse, kind of thing.
Yeah. It's, you know, and this is one of the things that Ben and I spend a lot of time, you know, working with not just young players, but young people, is giving them those tools. You know, you said something about it affecting you in life. And one of the things that, you know, when I first met Joe, it was, Joe, it's all good and well aspiring to be a world-class keeper, but you've got to come off that football pitch and be a world-class dad and husband and brother and son. Because if you work on that aspect, then you step back on the pitch and that guy just goes to a different level anyway.
Yeah. With that, I totally agree. And that's massive. That's massive. I totally agree. I think the key for any footballer is to not define yourself as a footballer. I think you need to define yourself as whatever you are off the pitch. You can be a dad, you can be a brother, a son, whatever it is. That's how you should define yourself. I think at the minute with what we're going through, I would imagine there's been a huge amount of footballers that will struggle with this massively because they're not able to go and do what they love. But I think the problem will be much more exacerbated if you actually call yourself a footballer. Who are you? I'm a footballer, and then I'm a father for two. No chance. No. Football is somewhere way below cycling for me. Do you know what I mean? It is. It's just the way it goes. And I think that is super important.
You know, that doesn't mean that you know, when you say that, some people go, oh, well, he's a Premiership footballer and he's saying cycling's more important. That doesn't mean that football isn't important for you and that you don't put the energy and the focus on it. It just means that you've got this lens that you look through, that football is a part of that lens. Cycling's another part of that lens, and family's a bigger part of that lens.
Completely agree. I think that when I say that, I don't, like I say, I completely don't mean it like that.
You don't have to defend.
No. Joe is exactly like me in that he is, and I am, the most competitive people you'll ever meet in your life, right? The competition, if there's a competition introduced to anything, like honestly, no matter what it is, anything, we will give above and beyond what you should probably normally give for that competition, because I think that's what made us what we are, me and Joe especially. We're so competitive, so driven with the idea of competition that makes you go to the next level. The other bits might let me down along the way, or it is what it is, but the competition element of it is huge for us.
I think that's key. That's why I wanted to speak to you, especially on here, Fozzie, because we're not for a second saying that there's a certain way to be, because that is the only way that you get the best out of yourself. But there's no way I could get the best out of myself living life like you. I look at someone like Harry Kane and I'm like, there's no way Harry Kane would be Harry Kane with how you work. You're the best, like, brilliant, world-class in my opinion. Like I say, we'll get onto a conversation we had. In my opinion, could have easily played for England a number of times, done what they've done at Man United, but you are happy at a good age playing superbly. But everyone's different and you know who you are. I look at someone like Harry, who's just football, getting the right technique, driving through. People have said you can't do it, I can do it. That's what makes him tick. Myself, you know, you don't want to train. You'd happily just turn up on a Saturday and be good. I want to train all the time. I just want to be in it. I want to be fighting. I want to, you know, that's me. I think the biggest message that is going to come from this is to find out exactly who you are, to get the best out of you. And whatever that best out of you is what it is.
Yeah.
You know, if it's not, you know, like you said about a striker missing a shot, if it doesn't go in, as long as you go through the right process and you miss. Like, you're not going to score every one. You might not be world class. You might just be Sunday League top scorer, but that is what you can do, and you've given yourself the best opportunity to do it.
That's it, mate. Let's finish there. You've nailed it. Sweet as a nut. We're done. We're done, mate. That's it. Oh, God.
I mean, Ben, honestly, we could talk for days on this. I just love it.
Yeah.
And You know, and you know, one of the things I'm going to say, I'm going to invite you to, you know, when things get back to normal and sometime in the future, you know, one of the things that, you know, Joe said to me was, you know, Jamie, when do I get to go to one of those camps that you do for the young players? And the camp, you know, is basically, it's like sitting down, and Joe said, we never talk about this stuff unless we're, you know, it's the back end of early hours of the morning. With
yeah.
And again, it's that encouraging, you know, getting to know who you are on and off the football pitch. You know, we address lots of different things, and you know, with guys who are like-minded, like yourself, like Joe, you know, who don't look at this when it's just things that are going wrong. And I think one of the biggest things that people have got to take away from your insights here is that you're saying, you know, there's me off the football pitch and there's me on the football pitch. I've got a question for you, though. I think this is, and I don't want to only highlight your Manchester United, because like you said, you wouldn't change that. But that, for a lot of players, is the dream, playing at the highest level. And there's no bigger club, arguably. Were you, and you said, I just wanted to get away, I wanted to get to Birmingham. Were you thinking, I want to be at top club when you were younger?
No, it wasn't even an option, mate. Like being in football, it wasn't even an option. You know, like I said, I left school at 16 and I was a chef for 2 years. So I was 18 playing non-league football, and then Stokes, luckily, well, not luckily, whatever it was, they saw me, and you know, that's how my football journey started. So for me, growing up, I didn't even play for my county when I was younger. Do you know what I mean? Like I wasn't even that good. So it was never even a thought to be able to go, right, I want to make it, I want to be the biggest, blah, 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 blah. When it came along, it was almost, like I say, happy-go-lucky. It just almost like fell into my lap. I must have been doing something right and showing people, but it did honestly just sort of almost fall into my lap. And then I'm playing games and Man United by me and it fell into my lap. And it was like, what on earth? Like, this is like, it just keeps coming. All the good stuff just keeps coming. And it's like you say, it's not until though something happened where I'm just going nicely on this nicely up there, and then all of a sudden I hit a speed bump, and I didn't know how to deal with the speed bump. I've never had to deal with the speed bump.
Joe would say exactly the same thing, didn't you? You know, Joe's always described it as career's gone boom, 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 all steps.
Yeah.
And then suddenly there's a like this.
Yeah.
You know, so let's talk about, you know, you have some injuries. How, you know, that's a ravine that people don't know when it's going to happen. Does it happen? How does Ben Foster deal with those injuries? How did they affect you? And what would you do differently if you could have that time again to deal with those?
I've got to say, you know, I've always been very, very good at dealing with injuries. I've had a huge amount of injuries. I've probably spent over 3 years out injured in my career. I've had 3 ACL replacements. I've broke a really horrible, nasty bone in the top of my foot, which meant I couldn't walk. I couldn't even put pressure on it for 2 months. I've broken my wrists. I've had double hernias. So I've had plenty of practice. And I've got to say, I've always been very driven to make sure I came back a little bit better or a little bit stronger. So it was always a chance to work on. I always say to some of the young lads now, because ACL is a fairly common injury, you might get 1 or 2 a year. And if it comes to one of the younger lads who are 19, 18, 19, I'm like, right, mate, I did my cruise shot when I was 19. I remember doing it at Stoke when I was 19. And I did it over the summer. I had the operation, and then I wasn't due back in until about 2 months after that. And I came back in, and I'd been in the gym, and I'd done weights, I'd done midsection, core, all of that kind of stuff. And I remember walking through the door, and they hadn't seen me in the best part of like 4 months maybe. And they were like, Fozzie, oh my God, look at, like, you look like a man. Do you know what I mean? And I remember somebody saying it to me and thinking, that's nice, that is. You know what I mean? How nice is that? That felt a million. So then I was like, oh, yeah, all right, sweet. So I've just always kept that sort of, that feeling of you can, no matter what it is, like now, like I say, I do a lot of cycling now, yeah. So every morning I wake up, I've got in my own head a weekly plan on the bike of what I'm going to do to make sure I'm stronger at the end of each week as what I was last week. So I wake up and I think, right, I'm going to do this on the bike today. I'm going to absolutely munt it. I'm going to nail myself, like kill myself. Do you know what I mean? And it's wicked because I buzz off that. I almost go to bed at night excited, like I can't sleep. So I'm thinking, I'm going to be in a world of pain tomorrow. But I think that's maybe something that comes with age. No, to be fair, Joe's had that all his life. He's a sicko. He loves it. But like that's how I just deal with stuff like that. Now in a minute we're in lockdown, but I'm having such a wicked time, seriously, because I know. Like cycling for me is the best. I love cycling. Yeah, I love it. I love it to bits. So I know I can improve my cycling and I can see the numbers. I'm on the watt bike every day, so I can see a number. I've got a gauge of how fit I'm getting. I've got my heart rate monitor on. I can see I'm getting fitter and it works. And I'm like, wow, this is real progress. Do you know what I mean? But I know that it will only hold me in good stead as well for when I get back to football. So yeah, that's what I've always said that to young lads, like just use this as a chance to work on every other bit. You never get the luxury of being able to devote this time to, like even this corona, you'll never have this much time on your hands ever again in your life, ever. So you may as well like maximize everything about your football to make it so much better. So when we're back playing, everybody should be at an elite level. They should be.
Where have you got that from? How did you have that at 19? Like, because, you know, you've discussed yourself as happy-go-lucky. An injury can be like, wow. So there's some mode in you, mate, that you're not happy-go-lucky. You're a lunatic. And that is the brilliant yin and yang of you, because you are happy-go-lucky. But like you said, when it comes to competition, where's that come from in you? Because that's not a natural thing. The natural thing for an ACL, especially at 19, I've never had it, you know, I'm very lucky. I've never had a serious injury, but there's nothing that can't come into your head that thinks, shit, is that me? You know, is that me? What do I do? Who do I look at? Where do I go? But you've got this ridiculous mentality, which didn't just come. You didn't just think, oh, I know, I'll turn into a man. Where do you see that in your youth? Where do you see that in your childhood? Where do you see that in you growing up? It might not have been in football, but where did you really know that you had it? When you really needed it, you had it.
Yeah, I think the first sense of having to sort of grow up quickly was obviously when I joined Stoke and I did my cruciate straight away. And I was only on year-to-year contracts. At the time, I was on year-to-year contracts. And like I said, I did my cruciate and I was like, shit, like, I don't even know if I'm going to get a new contract here. Thankfully, they gave me a new contract. I remember them giving it me. And my sister saying, you're lucky, you know, you shouldn't have got that contract because there's other goalies at the club that are going to be fit and do you know what I mean? They'll be getting ahead of you. And I remember her saying it, and I'm like I said, me growing up in Leamington, it sounds lovely, but we didn't really have anything. Do you know what I mean? It's not like we're a rich family. We've literally got nothing. Do you know what I mean? Nothing.
Yeah.
And I remember my sister saying to me that, like, "Oh, you're lucky you got that. You know, you're lucky you got it." And I remember her saying that, and it kind of stuck in a little bit. And I thought, yeah, I'm gonna have to do a bit here. I'm gonna have to maximise this sort of chance I've been given. Do you know what I mean? And I think for a good, like, say, an ACL is a 6-month rehab. And for the 6 months, I worked like a beast to make sure I was back stronger, blah, 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 blah. And I think even just a little comment, that's all it is. Do you know what I mean? But it's always stuck with me. And I've always, like, especially now, if I get in my head that I'm doing something, I don't care. I'm doing it. It is what it is. Do you know what I mean? There's no way that painful legs or sore muscles will stop you. I will drive on through it and nail it till I finished it.
Yeah, that's obviously an important moment because you just relived it easy. Like as little as your sister saying you're lucky there, and you're thinking,
yeah. But like, so it's not necessarily a money thing. But I remember thinking like you could do something here where you can literally like help your family out and stuff. Do you know what I mean? You can sort your family out. You can make sure they're happy and looked after. They've got a bit of extra like spending money here and there kind of thing. And that I think that was a big driver for me as well. Do you know what I mean? Just to make sure that I'm able to provide a little bit as well.
Well, yeah, that's the perfect drive, isn't it?
Yeah, you do, man.
I'd imagine
from
I'd imagine just floating along as well as like you would have done always. I'd imagine, I don't know, but popular, good at sport, cooking, about, happy, bubbling to your sister saying like, she basically said to you, Ben, you've got a chance here, mate. Come on.
Yeah, come on. Yeah, that's her way. She's a woman of little. She don't say a lot, to be fair. So that probably was her giving me an in-depth chat about sorting shit out, basically.
Nice.
What kind of chef What was the speciality in the chef? Were you a sous chef? What was your passion?
So yeah, I was a little commie chef. I was like the little Joey. So left school at 16. You heard of Café Rouge? Yeah, you've heard of Café Rouge on the high street. So me and my mate and then another mate, we joined Café Rouge as like pot washers basically to start with. We were washing all the shit up, and then as chefs left, we would become like the commie chef, and you would sort of work your way up to the point where we all went to college for a year. Learned some, I don't know what it was back then, MVQs or whatever kind of thing. But it was hard work, mate. Like chefing's like, it's a proper graft. It's a proper job, you know. You like some weeks you're working sort of 60-hour weeks kind of thing. It's proper graft. So I remember getting the chance to go play football, and it was like, what, you're going to pay me more money as a 19-year-old to play football? It's like, come on, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
What's next for you? What are you gonna do? How are you gonna keep? Because you sound like me. You need to be around, helping people, inspiring in different ways. What's next for you? What's the next dream move for you apart from the Tour de France?
Yeah,
and I'm not writing you off. You've got many more years left in the.
No, honestly, mate, I do. I'm 37 now, and I honestly think I've never been in a fitter, sort of stronger, better place to play football than what I am right now. And that's not me trying to just get new contracts year after year. I swear, I actually feel like wicked. Like I enjoy playing, and it's just, it works. You know what I mean? So hopefully I can play for another 2-3 years, whatever, until at least 40. But then after that, I honestly, mate, I do not know. I'm quite interested in doing a bit of media, and similar to you, I see you on the telly, and you know, people need to see that. Like you see, like your mate Mika, like how good is he on the thing? Like people need to see a smile. They need to see like that sort of energy.
That's what drives me nuts watching it. Like I get it, and the controversy is great, but like you sat in the studio sometimes, and I've almost ended up just looking up and thinking, when are we going to talk about footy here? When are we going to talk about, you know, the effort and the great work that's gone into what's gone on the pitch, and not just having an opinion on someone or an agenda, or like just bring back the fun and joy, the sheer joy of football. I get it, but like, come on. So yeah, I see that in you definitely, but.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Just to try and get rid of some of the negativity, mate. I think it's just horrible. Like but people want to see it, mate. Honestly, people love, like, if you've got a big match on a Sunday afternoon and people know that they're going to have Jamie Carragher, Graham Souness and Gary Neville off, everyone's like, oh yes, can't wait for this. But so that's, you know, they're only putting on what people want to see. It's not what I want to see, but other than that, I honestly, mate, I do not know. I really do not know. But it's something, I know I'll find something. It may be a case of me just stumbling along something, do you know what I mean? Which will inevitably happen. But I'm more than happy having a little bit of time out to go and do a load of cycling things that I want to do. There's loads of like bucket list climbs and rides and tours and all this kind of stuff that I'd love to be able to do. And you just even have holidays at like reasonable times when anybody else is going on holiday. You can go on holiday at Christmas, for example, them kind of things. I'm looking forward to that. That'd be nice.
Yeah.
And what you know, if you were a goalkeeping coach, and what you've just said doesn't suggest that you're going to go into coaching, but if you were a goalkeeping coach, how would you deal with Ben Foster and Joe Hart?
You haven't got to deal with Joe Hart. He's literally, before he's come in, he's wound himself up, yeah? He's got that screw in his back. He is literally like, he's got the most energy I've ever seen. Like we said earlier about when I remember when Joe was in the England team, like the energy he had was just frightening, honestly, frightening. I did a podcast the other week, actually, and they said, well, who's one of the best goalies you've ever trained with? And I said you, Joe, because you were just so like, oh my God, like Tigger, like bouncing, honestly, mate, like you were literally, some of this, like the energy to go after stuff and save it. And I remember thinking, you literally would be the dream to like show young kids. A training session with you where like I can imagine, I still see it, like the goalie coaches, Dave Watson, telling you what to do, and you're like going, yeah, like a dog almost. Just so like buzzing. And I was there like next to you going, oh, do we have to do that? Like, seriously, do we have to do it? So I think I'd be a lot more difficult to coach than Joe. Just to try and, I don't know. I think you just have to make everything a competition. If you make, I think that's the key to kids, is making stuff competition. You can do all your bits and bobs, but there has to be some competition element to it as well.
Yeah, great.
I get that, and Jamie, we talked about that question, and remove our names from it. How would you? You're a goalie coach now. How's a goalie coach got the best out of you? That was something that I wanted to know, Fozzie. How's a goalie coach and a manager got the best out of you? And do you think that gets the best out of everyone, or do you think specifically a goalkeeper coach needs to be able to individualize his goalkeepers to get the best out of them as a group?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, to be fair. And there's so many different coaches out there, and people I've worked with, goalie coaches, like we've worked with Dave Watson, when he was at England, and Dave is like, he's so angry, isn't he? He's got such an aggressive, but that's what he's like on the football pitch. Yeah. But as a person, like talking to him as a bloke one-on-one, he's brilliant, isn't he? Like, he's proper. You can have a chat, you can explain, you can talk stuff through for him. And I think the most important part of a goalkeeper coach is being able to connect with your goalers. Do you know what I mean? Being able to have that personality, a bit of sort of, you know what I mean, approachability, that nothing's off the table. You can chat about stuff, you can talk about stuff. I think that, for me, is the most important part of a goalkeeper coach, because most goalies can put sessions on, can't they? You know, you don't go wrong. You're going to have some goalie coaches that put better sessions on them. But in the main, it's about working with somebody who you've kind of got respect for. You want to do it for them. Do you know what I mean? I had Jonathan Gould at West Brom, and I was in the height of my I can't be arsed phase. Yeah, and because I got on with Jonathan so well, yeah, he used to go, Fozzie, please, come on, do it for me. Come on, mate. Dickhead. And I was like, all right, sorry, mate. Sorry. But like, that's the way it was, kind of thing.
Yeah, but if you, that's brilliant, because if you'd have had Watto, then you'd have fell out. Simple as that. You'd gone, mate, get off my case. I don't need it. Yeah,
I think if you fall out with your goalie coach, you're in bad waters. You're in a bad place. You are in a bad place, because I think without you noticing, but you kind of lose a bit of respect. So anything they say to you, you kind of, you don't really listen to it. You really don't listen to it. The same with managers. I think managers who are willing to listen to you, willing to sort of put an arm around you and sort of just big you up. Do you know what I mean? Just say, like, mate, you've been flying. You've been wicked for me. Just carry on doing that. Trying out the other lads out as well. Like, that always works for me. I love it when a manager says to me, Ben, Fozzie, get round the lads. You help them out. Yeah, you're flying here. We need you to help the player. That always makes me feel so good. It's a great feeling, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a great point. I've never thought of that. That's a great point. That.
Great.
I want
great.
I want to ask one question as well about working with Edwin van der Sar. I never really blasted you about him in the long times we spent together, and he's someone who really interests me as a goalkeeper. What did you make of working with a great like him?
The first thing that you notice about Edwin, the first thing I did when I met Edwin was, like, he was probably 35, I think he was, when he signed for Man United, and we actually both signed in the same summer. So I remember signing and then going to meet Edwin, and the first thing that struck me was he was literally, as a bloke, the finished article. He was the most polished, relaxed. If you could choose a bloke to be when you're older at 35, I would have chosen to be Edwin van der Sar. Honestly, the most. Yep. He just sort of glided into the room. Whatever, just sort of, yeah, hi, nice to meet you. He was approachable, he was personable, he was funny, he had a bit of everything. Do you know what I mean? He was literally polished, he was beautiful. And then as a goalkeeper, he was a mirror image. He was literally a mirror image. Like, some days he would come out for training, right, and he would catch 20 balls and he'd go, Steely, I'm going to go in now. And Steely wouldn't even question it. It would be, not a worry, Edwin, not a worry. And that was it. He would be in for the day. That was him done, yeah? But put him out on the pitch on a Saturday and he was like a Rolls Royce. Every time, without fail, he was just, nothing fazed him. He was super calm. But I think that just having that calm and influence around the place was massive for Man United at that time, because he was, at 35, there was not a better goalkeeper in the world that could have done what Edwin did at that time.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, it was lovely, mate. Honestly, he was lovely. He was lovely.
He gave that vibe, and what you just said at the end, what the club needed was someone like that.
Yeah. It's a different goalie. It's a different sort of goalie. Do you know what I mean? Like, an Edison wouldn't have worked for Man United back then. They needed an older, chill, just You know what I mean? Like I said, there's so many different teams that have different sort of goalies that play in different sort of ways, and there's going to be some team for everybody. There is. There's going to be a team where even you probably sort of thing. You'll look at a team might come in for you and you'll go, wouldn't be a good fit that. Or another team might come in, you might think, yeah, that would work. That would work. Look at the players that got the manager. That would work. That would.
Yeah, I get you. I totally get you. Yeah, I'm glad you said that. And what about working through the years? Standouts, goalkeepers. Been about all different spectrums. You with Hilario Gomez now. Like I remember just wanting him to really take off in the Premier League because he can do things that human beings can't do, right?
Yeah, exactly that, mate. That's actually the beauty of of Aurelio. So his arms are probably that much longer than mine. Each one is that much longer than mine. And even in training now, he's 39 years old, and he's the same as you. He's like Tigger. He's got energy to burn. He's still zinging about the place like crazy. But he'll make saves, and I have to stop everyone and go, "Did you see that?" Right?
Yeah.
No, none of us here could make that save. Literally, it's physically impossible for any single one of us to make that save. And he does it every day in training. And again, talking about class blokes and just calm influences. And like Aurelio he's that in abundance, mate. He's just so calm and chill.
Yeah, I've always liked playing against him. And I'm gutted for him that when he had his big moment, it didn't happen, did he? You know, he had the mad games at Spurs, and it taints you. It does. It taints you,
mate. It does.
And he's carried on at the same level that he was at PSV. Sorry, and it's like, well, he had one. He had one at Spurs, so
that's it.
What?
That's it. Yeah, I know. He's the sort of thing though. But I guarantee that if Aurelio would have done the prior work that we were talking about earlier, Jamie, if he'd have done that prior preparation to get himself into a position where, if something ever did happen to him that was a big old speed bump, he would have been able to take it in his stride because he's got every other facet to his game. Like everything's nailed on, everything's boxed off, ticked off. And I think that's the problem with, for me, the majority of players, they just haven't got that other bit ticked off, but it's a massive part.
Just great insight. Great insight. I can't imagine a player, just not taking this importance of what you just said about, that goalkeeper, calm influence, Van der Sar, Aurelio, just they've got stuff dealt with in other areas, and it has an impact on performance. You're not all blessed with the physical shot stopping abilities all the same. Everybody's got those different physical attributes, those different talent attributes. You probably see some guys who were at the front of the line when God was giving talent out, and some guys were in the front of the line when he was giving physical attributes out. You all make it work in different ways, but there's an underlying theme to, especially your position, that you've got to have that calmness, that way about you to be able to, not the Ben Foster, the old Ben Foster, but this Ben Foster, if you could package him up, this Joe Hart, if you could package him up and put him in, at 15 and drop it into them. And you can't do that, but what you can do is you can say to them, look, this mountain is going to require this skill. Whether you listen to it or learn from it is up to you. But take heed. This is going to be needed. Learn it now or learn it later in life.
True that, mate. True that. Love it. It's completely right, mate. Completely right. You can't make people do it, but it will help you like you would not believe.
Yeah. It's Joe. We'd have you for days. We'd have you for. Joe, we need to get you on a racer, and then the three of us can go on some long bike ride somewhere.
A racer. They're called road bikes. They're not called racers anymore. We used to call them racers when I was young.
We'd be with him for about 6 minutes and then he'd just be gone.
Oh, mate. No, that was wicked, lads. Honestly, I really enjoyed that, mate. That was class. Absolutely class.
No, honestly, Fozzie, that couldn't be like. Everyone's different in how they approach it and what brilliance they can give. But that's why I was so keen to talk about you, like as you, because you're not your stereotypical like top player. You're not, but you're a top player for those reasons.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Like, so I think that's key to point out, and to like, I know when you're at your best. Like, I know it's when you're like that, when you're smiling and do you know what I mean? You're clapping your hands behind your back, freakish. That's when you're at your best. Right. So I think there's only one thing to say. A huge thank you to Ben Foster for giving us his time today, and his expertise. Obviously, his expertise as a goalkeeper is, I could listen to for days, but not everyone's that interested in goalkeeping, and I appreciate that. But from a mentality point of view, what a fascinating insight into the top levels, the stresses, overcoming, and what you need to be at the top, and what you need. I think if we're going to take anything from this episode, is what you need to be the best you. So, Ozzy, thank you so much for your time, mate. Thank you for your honesty, and thanks for being you.
Absolute pleasure, mate. Listen, I love your work. Seriously, I love these podcasts. I love the videos. I love all of it, mate. Hopefully, we can help some people somewhere. And if you don't want to, it's fine. You'll find your time. It's cool. But no, keep it going, mate. It's brilliant. Really appreciate it.
Nice one, Jay. I'll leave you to finish it off, mate.
Really appreciate the insights. Fantastic. I think, even a player who's playing now, who's may have been closed-minded to looking at who they need to be away from football, to see that you're still competitive and performing, but also you're saying this is what's really important. And I think some people get that, but I don't think they live it. And so, Joe said this would be great, and I appreciate that we've had some time to get to know you a little bit. I think at some point we'll get to ask you, what would the 17-year-old Ben Foster do? What would you say to the 17-year-old Ben Foster? In fact, let's do that now. That would be our close. What would you say to the 17-year-old Ben Foster? Really short.
My biggest advice always is take ownership of yourself, and just be happy with who you are. You are what you are. You can't be anybody else but yourself. You're the only person that can be you, so just be you to the maximum.
Love it. Love it.
Love it. Right. Thank you very much. Let's get it out there, Jay. Let's get the people listening.
Yeah, that's great. Ben, really, honestly, absolutely made up with that.
Lovely fellas. That was nice. Enjoyed that. Wicked.